Hi there. Welcome to the Holder Self-Study DISC Assessment page. In this short video, I will show you how to understand and read your results. My name is Susie Price, and I am a facilitator and consultant, and I'm excited to share this information with you today. What this assessment can help you do is it can help you be more effective with people in your communications, because it'll show you how to adapt your style, how to understand how other people work, how to help other people bring their best to their role, how to bring out your strengths, how to bring out their strengths. And you're going to finish this video with a better understanding of your results. So let's just get right to it. There are 4 styles. That's why it's called DISC. You see the D, I, S, and C on the outside: dominance, influence, steadiness, and compliance. And there are some words there to describe each one of these areas. So dominance, very direct and assertive, fast-paced, talk to think. Influence, there's some similarities there. The high I, if someone has that in their style, they're very direct, but instead of assertive, like the dominance, they're more friendly. They're also fast-paced, and they also talk to think. The difference between the D and the I, the D is what you're going to see with the D is they're going to be very task-oriented first in their communication. And what you're going to see with the high I is they're going to be very people-oriented in their communication. And so let's go over to the S, the steadiness. Now we've got a change in what you're going to see from the D and the I. They're indirect and warm, and they have a more cautious pace. So a little less coming straight at you to share, getting close to you and saying exactly what they think. Indirect, a little bit pulled back, a little bit more reserved, but very warm, going to be more cautious. And they are different from the D and the I. They think before they talk. Like the I, the high steadiness is people-oriented. So these are just descriptions of things you will see in different styles, and we've talked about the dominance, influence, steadiness. Now let's look at compliance. Again, we've got indirect, something similar with the steadiness, but questioning. So instead of being warm and agreeable, the high compliance person is going to question. They're going to wonder, why are we doing that? Is that the right path? They're very cautious pace, like the high steadiness, and also wants to think before they talk. And you see other details there. I'm going to show you before we finish this debrief video where there is a memory jogger card on the website that this tools page is on for Holder, and there is a memory jogger card front and back that gives you a full description of each of the styles, and then on the opposite side, on side 2, it gives you some adapting tips on how each person might react and how you could adapt to them. So you're going to want to look for that memory jogger card. So I'll point that out before we finish today. But there is just an overview. The reason it's called DISC is it's the D, I, S, and C. Each letter stands for some behavioral traits. And then we have some famous people that are doing their style completely, so it helps you kind of understand a style. We've got the guy from Gordon Ramsay from, I think it's called Hell's Kitchen, and he's very direct and assertive. We got Judge Judy. She says what she thinks. She doesn't hold back. We've got with Ellen DeGeneres and Jimmy Fallon, very friendly. You see their smiles, very expressive, fun, life of the party. Then we've got steadiness, so that's Andy Griffith. If anybody watched the show, the Mayberry Show, or I guess it really was called the Andy Griffith Show, and Nicole Kidman. So pleasant, warm, amiable, agreeable, a little bit more laid back in their approach. And then we've got the high compliance. We got Spock saying, just give me the facts and the detail, very analytical. And we got Condoleezza Rice. So both of those, less facial expressions, and the exact opposite. If you look at the compliance and then you look at the influence, opposite. Influence has a lot of facial expression and very expressive. High compliance is less facial expression, more neutral, and a little less expressive and more focused on the facts. So you'll see the dominance and steadiness, same thing. Whoever is across from you can have a very different style and approach. The high dominance wants to hurry up and get it done. The high steadiness is, wait a minute, let's take our time, let's get it right, let's worry about the people. The high D says exactly what they think and is very assertive. High steadiness is a little laid back and isn't going to share exactly what they think until they feel comfortable. The high D goes right towards conflict, and the high steadiness backs away from conflict and says, okay, can't we just all get along? So you can see where there's lots of opportunity for challenge when we're working with different styles, and also lots of opportunity for great synergy. But there is a very quick overview of the D, I, S, and C styles. And you'll notice when I was describing that there are some similarities. The D and the I are more willing to take risks. I've talked about them being more talk to think. The S and the C, they're going to be more cautious around risk. They think to talk. They're a little bit more focused on accuracy and getting it right. The D and the C have in common that they focus on tasks. The I and the S have in common that they focus on people. Now, we have to remember that this is not all of someone. This is just their style. And just because, say, you're a D and an I doesn't mean you can't get really good at the details. It just means that your style, what people are going to see, is a very assertive, direct, big picture type of style, and vice versa on that. So that is an overview of the styles, and you also have the memory jogger card that you can print out. It's one page, two-sided. Now, DISC results are awesome, but I also want you to know what they are not, and that's based on the fact that it's just measuring one aspect of a person. They are not a measure of success or failure. So you can be a leader in any one of those styles or have a mix of those styles. It's more about how you treat people, whether you're fit for the job, your background and experience. As many other things come into play. If you do not manage your style or are not aware of your style and how it's impacting others, you can have problems. So this is where this is helpful, but it is not if you're this style, you won't be successful. Every style can be successful. It's not a measurement of someone's brain or their horsepower, as I was talking about earlier with the different assessments. It's not a measure of mental health. It might reveal a little bit about any stress you may be under, but it's not going to tell you, it's not a psych test. It doesn't tell you what's going on in your heart or in someone else's heart. They may be very direct and assertive, but they're really caring. So it doesn't tell you that. It just says style. This is what we see. It's not a great tool to use in interviewing by itself. You can use it in interviewing in regard to, I think I want a more cautious style, but it's going to be one piece of the puzzle, maybe 10% of the puzzle. You need to think of all the other things that go into the picture, which is background, their horsepower, their drivers, and it's not perfect. You may have read your results and saw some things that you think, oh, that's not true for me. And so my adage always is, if it's not true for you, put a question mark by it if you wonder if it's not true for you, and ask somebody you trust to give you some feedback. But if you know it's not true for you, exit out and say, okay, that's not true for me. Maybe it was back when I was a teenager or I was in college or early on in my career, but I don't do that anymore, or I've never done that. So it's not perfect. People usually say it's about 85% accurate in its statements. So those are all the things that the DISC results assessment are not, but here's how they can help you, and I've already touched on this. They tell you about your strengths, tell you about blind spots. Blind spots are something everybody else sees but we don't see. It can really help a team begin to understand the differences and help a team work together more effectively. So let's go into you reading your results. You will open your assessment now and go to, it's usually about page 21 or 22, and you'll see a graph that looks like this, and it says natural and adapted style. What I want you to do is pay attention to your natural style, so you'll want to circle that or put a star by it, but the natural style doesn't change. Every time you take the assessment, there's usually not a lot of difference in the natural style. It stays the same. And what you'll notice is the numbers on the side, 0 to 100, and then 50. See the 50 number? 50 is the energy line, so anything above 50, when we were going through the style descriptors, the D, I, S, and C, it's a reminder. It's saying, so for me, this is my assessment, I'm a high D, high I. So anything you have above the line, you may have one letter above the line, you may have two letters above the line, you may have three letters above the line. It's all good. It's all a snapshot of your style. There's not a right answer or a wrong answer. It's more about how you use your style. Okay, so anything above the energy line is going to tell you what your style is, and so I'm a high I and a high D. And so if you're using our workbook that we use in the class, you would note the high I and D in the workbook on page 2 if you have been in any of the classes that I've had. If not, just make a note. I'm a high I, I'm a high D, I'm a high S, I'm a high C, what are your primary, your number one, and what's your second highest? Now, adapted style. What is the adapted style? Adapted style is a snapshot of how you're changing your style to meet work demands at the time you took the assessment. Generally, when I retook this recently, my adapted style looked different. My D was higher. And what you'll want to do on your assessment, and you can pause this in a minute to assess this, but what you'll want to do is look at anything that's different from your natural style by more than 10 points. So you'll see for me, what's more than my natural style, I've got 100. On my adapted style, I've got 57. So I'm more than 10 points. That means I'm pulling my D style down more than 10 points. So I want to make a note of that. I want you to do the same thing. The other thing that I'm doing, just to serve as an example, is my steadiness, that high S, the green bar, is 25. I'm adapting it by more than 10 points to 8. So I'm pulling my S down. Okay, so take a moment, pause the video, see what you're moving up or down. If anything's going up or down 10 points, just make a note of it. And on the next slide, I'm going to give you some explanation of what that means. So here is, you can pause this if you're moving your style up, what you're doing, and if you're moving your style down, what you're doing. So for me, if you remember, I'm moving my D down. I'm being less assertive and challenge-oriented. When I took this is how I'm adapting my style. And also I'm moving down. I was speeding up my activity level. So my pace is getting faster. So the way you use that is you say, okay, what's happening in the job that's making this occur at this point? And for me, this was early on when I started my business, so I was being less assertive as a facilitator because I knew I had a kind of a strong personality, and I was really pulling my style back. And then I was actually, because there was so much to do, speeding up my activity level. And then what you do is you ask yourself the question, is this adapting working? And for me, it was half working, half not working. Was it causing you some stress? Yes, I was moving too fast, and I really wasn't speaking up sometimes when I could have. I wasn't actually using my strengths fully. So for you, again, you can pause and go back to the other slide to analyze whether you're moving your style up or down, what that means, and then ask yourself these three questions. Is it working? Is it causing me stress? Is it a strength revealed? And just remember with adapting, some people will say, I'm not adapting my style at all. Is that good? And the answer to that question is, well, is it working? And so somebody may need to adapt their style based on something that's happening on the job right now. And so if you're not adapting, you could say, well, no, it's not working, or yes, it is working. So you just ask yourself these questions. If you are adapting, the same thing. Is it working? Oh, yeah, I know what's happening. We're going through an audit, so I'm being more cautious, say, if you're raising your seat. Is it working? Is it causing you stress? Oh, yeah, maybe a little bit. It just is a snapshot and an understanding, and it's a good point of discussion. You have to bring meaning to that piece of the assessment. But that is what the adapting is. As we move forward, we'll continue to talk about the natural style, because that is where you are more comfortable. That's where, when you're under stress, you'll go to your natural style, and it is natural to you, so that's why we just focus on that. I want to mention this graph here. This is the DISC wheel. It's another picture of an image of the four styles, because as you can see, even though I broke it down when we started describing the D, I, S, and C individually, we're a mix of styles. So actually describing and learning them individually is the way to start to get to understand them and use them to better understand others. But knowing that people are a mix, we've got this other graph here, and you'll notice around the edges of the wheel are the D, the I, the S, and the C. And then there are descriptors of each area. If somebody's on the conductor side, that means they're mostly high D, and the conductor would be the descriptor. This is my wheel, a high a D and I, and you remember how strong it was on the graph. Strong meaning not good or bad, just it was high as 100. So I'm a persuader. I'm a mix of the D and the I. The further out you are on the wheel, the stronger the tendency is. So if your numbers were more like 50 or 60, you're closer in on the wheel, and you might be, if you had a high DI but you were at 65 instead of 100, you might have landed somewhere here at 44 or 45. And again, moving in, it means your style is a little less noticeable, and you might have an easier time adapting to other styles. So that is what this is measuring. The circle is your natural style, and the star is your adapted style. And what we look at is what's the difference between the circle and the star. If the circle's on one side of the wheel and the star is way over an analyzer, that would tell me that somebody over there at the C is really adapting their style a lot, and it might be a conversation around, is that causing you stress? How is that working? And it might not be, but it can be a point of discussion around that. One other thing to note is that whoever is across from you, so like the coordinator is across from me, that's the mix of the S and the C. You can have a lot of tension with someone who's across the wheel from you, and you can have a lot of synergy. It's a matter of whether you understand each other. So the tension might come from the differences. So the persuader, for example, is going to talk a lot and be kind of loud and assertive, and the coordinator is going to say, okay, I want to think before I talk. I'm going to be a little bit more reserved, and I'm going to make sure we get it right, and I'm going to make sure I mitigate the risks, where the D and the I might be saying, okay, let's hurry up, let's take some risks, let's get some stuff done. So you can help each other, and you can also get on each other's nerves a little bit sometimes. So it's helpful to understand the styles. And the thing is, we can also understand, like, that's my strength, that I take risks. But it doesn't have to be my blind spot if I'm aware of it. So if I'm aware of it, somebody's aware of their style and learns to manage it is very different from someone who's just doing their style full out and not paying attention to what the blind spots could be. So you can either manage actually two things, manage your blind spots and then get people who have different strengths different from your own to help you manage those blind spots. And then you learn to, over time, really appreciate the differences as opposed to seeing, okay, that coordinator who's making me slow down or helping me slow down to get better results. You appreciate that, and there's less tension, and there's just a ton of synergy. So you learn to work together. And that's true all the way across the board, like the relator down here, the S and the I, and the implementer, or the analyzer and the promoter. Anybody who's across the wheel from you could be a challenge, but it's a great opportunity for synergy. So we keep that in mind. And these tools are about knowing ourselves, and it's about using your strengths and understanding that is true power. Knowing who you are and what your strengths are, that is the starting point. And from there, when you know your own strengths, you're better able to see other strengths, and you can use the DISC tool as one way to state those strengths and bring those out in others. So all the best. There is my phone number and my email. If you have any questions, please reach out. I'm happy to help anytime, and all the best to you.